Welcome back, everybody, to the ROI Online Podcast. And today I want to introduce you to someone you need to know. His name is Jesse Pennington. Jesse's coming out of Cleveland, Ohio. He's a HubSpot magic man, and he's been associated with our ROI Online for a handful of years now. Jesse, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Thank you, Mr. Steve Brown. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. It's nice to talk with you today and with everybody listening.
Yeah, so Jesse, your company, Begin Bound, has been hanging around the HubSpot ecosystem for about 10 years, or maybe Begin Bound started
going on 5
later.
years.
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, so this summer will be our 5-year anniversary, but I started with HubSpot about almost 10 years ago.
Yeah, so that's the reason that I wanted to talk to you today, and I'm excited to have you, my audience, meet you. You know, we have story brand guys that listen. We have entrepreneurs and business owners and marketing directors. HubSpot comes up often, and it's an ecosystem that we really promote and are experts in, and you're an integral part of that. But it's important to know that you've been digging around in that HubSpot tool for about 10 years. Talk to us a little bit about your background, why HubSpot, what certifications, et cetera.
Right. So when I finished grad school, I kind of got back into web development. That was I've always been kind of a creative person, and that was kind of my pathway to like be creative and then also essentially get a job and make some money. So that's kind of how I started out, and I ended at an inbound agency where I kind of just did development and stuff, and that was my introduction into HubSpot. They were one of the first inbound marketers and all that fun stuff. So that was my introduction to the system, and it's come a long way since 2011. But one of the things I always loved about it, first and foremost, was HubSpot has a great culture. They have a really great support team. They do really good with feedback and trying to solicit feedback from people. And I've seen it personally in the system over the 9 years plus that I've been involved with it, where you really see how they have taken the feedback and made the product better. And it's always been a really great all-in-one solution. And it kind of started with just really simple marketing tools, and now it's kind of just evolved into this massive ecosystem. So I came at it from a development perspective, making websites and all that kind of fun stuff. And then that kind of lends itself to conversions and kind of collecting data and things like that. So then when HubSpot released their CRM, I was able to kind of, sidestep into that as well and kind of help with that, because it's just similar technology with those kind of things and just their product, the way that it kind of connects everything. So yeah, I've been poking around in it since back in the old days. I've got the inbound marketing certifications, Begin Bound's a certified sales solutions partner. I've had the developer certifications since it ever came out, and every iteration since, and all the growth-driven design and all those kind of fun things that have come out. So it's been a really great journey. I still love the product. Still happy to work with providers like you today that are, helping other companies use this tool and this software really well. It's important. I think it's it's a benefit. I really do. I think it's worth the investment, and that, if it's like a tool, if you don't use a tool, then it just sits in the garage. I mean, that's not the tool's fault, but if you use it right, it can do a lot. Really, it really can.
I was thinking the marketing automation tool, the CMS, CRM, all these different tools, and there's not just HubSpot. You have Infusionsoft, you have all these other ones, and they're all pretty sophisticated in there. You have to really dig into them and get to know them, and they each have their idiosyncrasies. And I'm not this conversation not so much about which one's better, but we chose just to be experts in HubSpot. And what I like about what you're saying is no tool is perfect. Every tool has frustrating components, but I agree with the culture within HubSpot is they're very open to listening to what the client needs to take advantage of the tool, which is their whole intent.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. They've always been customer centric, I think, from day one. And I think it bears out in the software. It bears out in the people that they hire. And all the relationships with people that I've had at HubSpot in Boston and on the Slack channels and the developers and everything. It's a good community. And I mean, to your point, I mean, everything is very saturated. There are 20 different widgets out there that all say they're going to make your life better. And they all want $30 a month or $100 a month or $500 a month or whatever it is. Right.
Yeah.
So it really, for business owners and for providers, you really do kind of have to start to pick nowadays. It's really hard to be a general, we're good at everything company. Typically, my experience with people that do that is that they're knee deep as far as what they can provide, and that actually secretly they do actually kind of specialize. They just don't like advertise it. And there's really one system they started with or two systems. So for me, for BeginBound, like I could do like WordPress projects and other things as a developer, and I made a business decision early to turn down that work for the most part. Except for like local clients, people, here in Cleveland that, just needed help, people that you knew and you just want to help them out, and it's, helpful jobs. But as far as like advertising the business itself and working with you and everything, it's really, I just decided early, like I'm going to focus on HubSpot. I'm going to be really good at it. There's tons of customers. It's a great environment that I'm happy to stay in. And it's worked out really well, especially for a small business, just kind of growing. So I think every business has to make that decision, in the tool stack that they build. And that's a tough process. It's really confusing. I get it. I hear it all the time. I'm sure you hear it all the time. It's overwhelming. It's confusing. They don't quite know what to do. They've got the Google search results. And honestly, when you're like, I mean, you probably experienced when you're trying to find something that you don't know anything about, you're like top 10 best, you just start doing all the typical searches and you just get like blog posts from God knows where, from who knows where, like saying these are the top 5, whatever, but it was written by some dude that works for X company. Like It's hard, it's actually, the internet it's a double-edged sword. Like the information's there, but you really, it's not easy anymore. Like you kind of have to do the work because everybody's gotten on that SEO game and content game. It's everywhere. So, yeah.
I agree. The challenge for a business owner or a marketing director is need to have this messaging, but we're going to have to put it into some sort of technology to connect on all these platforms. And that's really confusing and frustrating because they're always updating. They're always have these gotchas that you didn't know was going to hit you till you get in. Okay, here we go, guys. And we walk in and it's like glitch. And that's what I like about HubSpot is that we know where HubSpot's sweet spot is. But the beautiful thing, it's an open platform because every marketing director and business owner knows they're going to need to do, well, I've got an email system and I need to do a video system and I need to put a podcast and I need to do I put my stuff on Medium? You have all these questions. But the beautiful thing about HubSpot is it can be a foundational tool that can scale with you, and it's open to you bolting on whatever tools are best for you.
Right. And I mean, a lot of the tools are doing the bolt-ons and stuff. I'd say HubSpot's put in a lot of work just in recent years to really expand their integrations and their app network. I can't remember the name of it, but I know that there's a particular platform that they just bought outright that they're using now for some of the connections. It really escapes me in the moment, but maybe it'll come to me. But yeah, they're doing a lot for that. And I think the best thing to maybe tell like a green business owner or just maybe an experienced business owner, but somebody that's green to the technology, let's say, you have to pick a mothership. Like you kind of want to pick at least something where, you have some kind of central command of where you're going to kind of put some stuff. And I think HubSpot is a really good candidate over a lot of the other choices simply because they really do have good tools for a lot of the things that you're going to need. The website, a form to just get people to convert on, sending an email, trying to follow up with people automatically, and then into the sales side, connecting those marketing leads that are coming into some kind of an organized system where your salespeople can actually like see what the data is. They can jump into, a sale that's in process, see where it's at, see the notes on the account or where things were at in the past, even listen to the phone calls. If you did outbound calls from HubSpot, and then you can sync with something like CallRail or whatever for the inbound calls as well. So there's all the things that you kind of are kind of simple, kind of duh things like
Yeah.
that you'd think like, of course they have this technology, but you just don't use it. You don't know.
Right.
That's all there. Like you really can, and we've worked on that with some of the clients for ROI and things of that nature. And it's a huge time saver, really, at the end of the day, if you want to talk about the bottom line value.
I look at it as you need to pick whether it's a Ford or a Chevy or a Toyota or
Right.
whatever, right?
Right.
So, but the thing about HubSpot that I really feel comfortable with is that you can pick this tool, and as you go into the future, you don't know exactly what other technology you're going to need to take advantage of.
True.
But it's the thing about HubSpot, you can be fairly confident that that tool will integrate and complement or support the process that you're building. So it really becomes an asset that you're investing in that's going to grow with you and scale with you as you need in the future, which is unpredictable.
Yeah. I mean, it's very unpredictable. I mean, I think we're both quarantined from COVID-19 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, having a digital ecosystem to organize your things, probably not a bad idea in the 21st century, given
Totally.
everything that's going on. And yeah, I can say, you know, you would think that people would pull back on like digital marketing or things of that nature in terms of like stuff, especially with like what's going on right now. But in a lot of cases, I've seen people doubling down on it or taking advantage of it because it's very scalable. You can do it very quickly. It only takes it doesn't take long to upload a list of, people, organize them smartly, in the system, and then figure out, okay, are we going to email campaign these people or just keep track of where they're at? Be able to track that connected to your website or other things. I mean, these things are actually very scalable and you can do them pretty quickly if you kind of get in and do it. So there's a lot of benefit, especially now, to doing it. I mean, it's kind of like there's this whole swath of people that didn't get in the digital game or were slow to do it or whatever. And everything that's happening now, there is an opportunity. They're all kind of like, oh God, remote working actually kind of works. My people are still getting their job done. Who would have thought? That's just the way it is. And digital marketing and the CRM and the website and all that stuff and what HubSpot provides, it's right there. It's been there all along. So the people that have been doing it, really stand to benefit. And it's never been a better time to jump in too, because they got all those starter packages and everything. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty approachable for the most part to get in there. So even at just like an intro level.
Yes. So what you're talking about is this great awakening, if you will, of realizing
Yeah.
that you need to get your act together online in case there's this. Who would have ever thought that you can go up and shake someone's hand, meet them for a coffee, go out to dinner, travel to their location, when actually now you need a way to conduct business,
Mm-hmm.
create those relationships remotely, but track all those conversations, follow up on those conversations, and have a strategy and document what's resounding and what's not.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about one specific one just for fun. One that I know you use and that I use every single day, which is the meetings tool in
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot CRM and sales. It saves my life. I mean, it's a link in my email. I've told the calendar, like, here's when I'm available and here's when I'm not. Go forth and prosper.
Yeah.
So would people want to meet or whatever? It's, and we've been doing this long before the pandemic. All those emails you send, okay, I'm free Tuesday at this time and this time, but then I'm free Thursday at this time, but not Friday. Maybe you waste 15 minutes of your day, like doing that every time, multiplied by clients or how many meetings or whatever. Now it's just, hey, go to this link and find a time that works for you.
Yeah.
Done.
And then
And that saves me, just as a small operator, it saves me tons of time. It looks professional. It's all automated. They pick the time that works for them. They get the email from it saying, hey, look, you can customize the message. I've customized mine. You have yours, whatever. Happy to meet you, whatever. Send them a Zoom link that comes with it. You can put it in the description. Just use a standard one. Like you have a private meeting room in Zoom. Everybody does when you have a basic account. You just put that in there. And then it's done. So, I mean, I laugh all the time. I'll tell my wife or my dad, be like, oh, hey, look, I got 2 new potential clients. They booked meetings with me, and it looks like my Friday is going to be busy. And I'm sitting there eating a sandwich, like I didn't do anything. So, you could put these things on your website too. They can be in your email signature. They can be on your website. Like this is one of many simple tools that is really obvious. I'm very value focused. Like it's all about value at the end of the day. Like that's how you win. You provide value to people and you win. That's just my philosophy. Like that tool is one perfect example of that's valuable. It's easy to communicate. It's simple. It saves time. And it's not all this other crazy, scary stuff like CRM and, your, your data network. And we're going to do massive marketing workflow data. It's just like, big data, like they love it, but a lot of people don't get it. Heck, I don't get it even sometimes. I mean, it's crazy how big it can get. So you just come back to value, these simple tools, things that people use every day to run businesses. And that's where I focus. I know that's where you focus. And I think those things are really valuable. So there's a fun example for everybody.
I think the best way for a business owner to start getting their act together online is most folks start on the marketing side of the house, and it's confusing, and who's a marketing expert? But really, if you start on the sales side of the house, let's take off the word sales, but let's just say we're going to track conversations, we're going to facilitate conversations and expedite conversations. So here's what was big for me. I come from a heavy interruption-based cold call mindset organizations where you need to barge in and arm wrestle someone till they give you the attention and then trick them into signing up so you can make your quota, right?
Right.
But here you're talking about something that in the past 8 years, that's never been the case here. People do the research, they stumble into our system, they look around, they find something that's very interesting, then they go pick a time and they initiate the conversation. They schedule a time on my calendar, and then in the morning I check my email and I have a sales conversation at 3:00 with someone I didn't know about. But I'm able
they know
to
more
go,
about you too. That's the funny part.
Totally. And so, but now I need to go look in the tool and go, all right, they've been checking us out for about 2 months, and they finally have scheduled a time, and they were hanging around in this area looking at these services. So guess what? I'm not walking into the conversation cold. I'm understanding more about what they're interested in. Right. And that's the essence of inbound marketing, and it is a totally legitimate expectation that the folks that are listening, your business can operate that way. You just need to have a different expectation of what you can get out of this investment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny. I mean, like that's one of my favorite things too, is like when you get into that classic conversation about we don't need the internet or we don't need this or, all those kinds of things. The first thing I tell people is I'm like, all right, if I said, hey, you have a flat tire and you don't know this area, you need to find a place to get your tire fixed. Like, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to pick this thing up and you're going to look on it. I mean, at the end of the day, like the internet is already telling people about you. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your business is. I don't care what industry you're in. You are not special. You're on the internet one way or another. And if you're not, that's kind of amazing, and that's still bad. So you're either telling people what you want them to hear when they find you or look for you, or someone else is telling them. So at some level, you have to take accountability and responsibility for this and do this, just like you would anything else. And you would be surprised how much it impacts your business. And, to your point about the Great Awakening earlier, we're getting that now. It's amazing how long it's taken, but, it's all out there. And so what happens is they go through that Great Awakening and then they start poking around. They're like, oh gosh, I got to get this stuff figured out, or I got to do whatever. And that's where some of these tools come in and, transparent about how you use it and how I use it. and that's the way they should be using it. And I think that that's a really good example of just like, hey, I'm not hiding anything. There's no tricks anymore. Like, you can use these tools too for your business. Totally. So that you, and at the end of the day, it's, passive is a bad word in sales, but the passive sales are really nice. People like passive income, but not passive sales. It's kind of funny how that works, right? But the truth is, it's money either way. And it's money that you didn't have to spend time. You were doing something else productive, hopefully, while that was happening. That's being doubly productive. That's amazing. You can do that. That's not hard to do. And these systems are out there for you to do that on. So for your point about the sales, getting that organized initially, just getting your sales team, a lot of times communication is the biggest thing. This guy owns these sales. This guy owns these sales. People have their silos, and there's all that kind of stuff, and technology is scary. But at the end of the day, it's just like, look, all this is going to do is make it clear what's going on with each prospect. And
let's talk about an example. So first of all, HubSpot CRM, for everyone who doesn't know, is free. Now, CRM is a customer relationship management tool. Basically, it's a place that you collect all of the conversations and track them, and everyone can see and stay up to speed on what's been going on with each of your contacts or contact records. And so one of our clients that Jesse's doing some great work with, we've set up their website stuff. We've helped them do their marketing strategy and then started campaigns. But on the back end, inside of the business, there's multiple team players that need to be in the know, understand what's going on with each customer, each prospect, each project. And so what Jesse's been doing is the beautiful thing about the HubSpot CRM is very customizable. Mm-hmm. So Jesse, kind of talk to us about, just walk us through a little bit of the thinking, what's the first things that you do with this client, then where are we going and what can they expect?
It's funny, but the first thing I do is get out like a Google Doc or something and say, before we get into the system, we need to talk about just the very basic particular things of how you sell. So, in the case of, let's say, a real estate client, we need to know, okay, what do you call your different stages of sales? Is it, the contract signed and now we're waiting on credit approval, or, we have a commitment on a property, but it's contingent, and everyone has their own definitions of we can define these things. So there's actually a nice little Kanban board in HubSpot, and you can actually watch all the deals kind of move back and forth to see that. But to get to that point, the very simple thing is you have to just identify, like, what are the things the sales guys need to check off when they talk to someone. Obviously first name, last name, email, phone number. That's the easy stuff that gets them thinking that way. And then it's like, what's your definition of, a client type, let's say. So in real estate, it would be, it's a lease, or it's a conventional sale. It's FHA, it's whatever, they have their list. So I can make that. I can make a little custom drop down that has your little things in it, put it in the little sidebar. So it's in a quick view, it's ready to go. So every time you pop in, it's right there, and you can just go through and start filling in the information based on a phone call, while you're on the call, after the call, whatever. Beauty of this is that goes into the system. And then anybody that looks at that contact in the sales team, or the sales manager or the owner or whatever, can come in at any time and see that information. And then in addition to that, you have notes. So people can leave notes, and they can be brief, just like I talked to somebody, I was on this call, whatever. This is how you start to get that communication symmetry within the business. So getting people used to that initially is one of the first big steps, but also just defining what those properties are. What are those properties that are custom to your business? And so I'll use bullets is my favorite tip in like a Google Doc. And I'll do like a parent bullet that says like client type. And then I'll do sub bullet that says lease or FHA or whatever. That's an easy way for people to kind of understand what we're doing in terms of the options that we can create. Like, date this contract sign. Well, that's a date field. Okay, I need to create that. So I work with the client to try and get that whole list, because there's all the standard stuff and then there's all that extra stuff. And then once you get that in for a contact and you get that in for a deal, now you have the system customized in a way that when I show them how to use the system, it'll actually make sense to them. So if you don't do that work up front, then you're really putting the cart before the horse. And you're already going uphill, right? Because you're trying to introduce a new technology, especially to like sales teams. They're wary of new technology, or they have a system that works for them already. They still haven't traded in their BlackBerry or something like and that happens. I mean,
It's
it
true.
just does.
Yeah.
So you have to be ready for that. And the easiest, at least in my opinion, and free tip for everybody, like I just start with like a Google Doc and simple bullets and just like, okay, let's just talk about how you classify things and what you talk about things, because then we can go on the back end and do that work and set that up for you so that when we do the training, there's a lot of familiar stuff in there and they see the value. They start to see the value quicker because it's in their language and it's set up there. And so when you're showing them the things in HubSpot, it makes a lot more sense. So that's a full rounded thing of like how you onboard, how they get used to it, where you kind of start. That's where I always start. I think it's pointless to do anything else. I really do, because it's just, unless people want ownership, right? People want ownership. They want their own custom, our business is different, or our business is special, or whatever. You have that, and that's fine. They're all special, but I want you to see that when you log into HubSpot. I want you to see that when you look at your system, so you feel like you own it. And so that's one of my favorite things to do.
So we get our language clear. What I think some of the mistakes are, and hey, Mr. Salesperson, here's a CRM I heard about. You implement it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot in that order, that delegation right there.
Right.
First of all, you're saying, I want you to set up a new system. Well, that means you're going to introduce change into the whole business.
Right.
You're changing the way they're going to communicate. You're changing the expectations of where information sits. And it's not just the salesperson. So in the example of the realtor, there's a lot of paperwork involved in that conversation, and the salesperson's not going to fill out all that paperwork. It's going to be handed off to someone who's a paperwork specialist. Well, they need to know where they are in that process. They need to know when something's assigned, and then they need to document when that step's been followed. There's a lot of existing friction and frustration that already is in your system, whether you have a CRM or not. And to walk in and create a nice unified vocabulary, a nice unified flow of information, you're starting to reduce friction. You're starting to clue in people to what's going on, especially the customer. The customer feels it too when they feel like this was an easy, professional, unfrustrating process.
Right. Yeah. And that's why you have to start simple with that. And it requires ownership. To your point, it's going to affect a lot of things. So if you're coming into an implementation and it's very like, here's like a spreadsheet and you go do it, it's possible to do it that way, but the likelihood that your investment is going to bear fruit down the road, that you're actually going to use it, because I think there's, for every story about a successful implementation, there's probably 3 about how somebody spent money to implement something they never use, and for a variety of reasons. So setting up for success is so important. So you really need that ownership and buy-in, especially at the beginning. And that's, again, why I try to start outside the system with just getting those basic things kind of there so that the system can be ready to be personalized for that very reason. Because there's a lot of bumps that go along the way. But the beauty is, when people are selling these systems, right? HubSpot and everybody, it's across the board. The sexy stuff is what sells. You see the beautiful dashboard. We have, $750,000 in recurring revenue that we're planning to take in this month. And, our close rate is 70% on the dashboard. So we're expecting this much in revenue, but it could be this much in revenue. It's all right here in all the beautiful colors and the graphs. And I'm going to automate this thing to go out, whatever. It always starts there, but that's not where it starts to get there, right? You have to do those basic things of setting it up and using the tool consistently. To your point about starting with sales, it actually is really important, because if you do the sales stuff right, then the reporting and even the digital marketing, which bounces off of that in terms of handing off, sales, sales qualified leads to marketing qualified to sales qualified leads and things like that. Those things are so much easier to organize and identify. And then when a client comes to you and says, we want to target people in this region that have interacted with this thing, a year ago, because we think we have a really good product that could work for them. But it would only work for these people, especially in this spot. And you're like, if we had done that legwork and we had set it up in a way that language wise and property wise and specifics works for your business, as a marketer or as a salesperson, whatever, I can easily say, no problem. Because we've been it's boring at first. Like, you use the system consistently, you use it the same way, you get people to communicate and personalize it. You just do that. You don't see it right away, but then those conversations become easier. What happens a lot of times is that conversation comes and then you got to sit there and go, well, the data is not really that trustworthy because, the properties, the sales guys, or people are complaining that they're missing a property or they're missing something that doesn't make sense. It doesn't follow the business model. You get into all of that. So we always, we've done this for a long time. So that's kind of the whole thing. It's like, let's start the right way. It's not as sexy right away at first, but it will bear fruit down the road because you can trust it. And that's what people forget. It's like, data is great, but you can have bad data very, very easily. You have to really protect your data, and you got to start on that right foot so that down the road you can make all those sexy moves that you see on the TV or that sell the software. It just, that's the process. That's the reality.
What I want people to understand, if you start with the sales process that you're talking about, and you first get your clarity on how the organization, we're going to say sales, but acquires new customers, new business. And there's a process. It's a business process. But then if you're empowered as a business owner and you have clarity and your sales team's communicating, using the same vocabulary, documenting all of the conversations in a centralized place that everyone can see, then this is how you would look at marketing. Marketing becomes a support tool. What can we create to support conversations during the evaluation stage for the customer, during the decision stage for the customer? What information would be helpful? What do we need to create to help the salespeople communicate better? And then what are the assets that we could create to follow up after they do become a customer? Well, that's the proper way to look at marketing and marketing support. And I think that's where we can start to go, all right, so let's consider your website and where it lives and how we're going to connect activity in the evaluation stage with our CRM, customer relationship conversation evaluation tracking system. And that leads us to a CMS, or a content management system. The beautiful thing about the HubSpot tool is it integrates so nice into that and helps give you clarity on what people are doing while they're evaluating you before you even know about them.
Right. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, you need the website. You always need the website at some level. And there's different types of websites and things out there, obviously. But the beauty of using the HubSpot website, if you're using the other tools, is, to your point, everything's kind of interconnected. So when someone visits a page for a certain amount of time, or maybe clicks on a link or downloads something, that actually shows up in the timeline with all the other sales stuff. So the offline sales stuff, the phone calls, maybe send a brochure, whatever you do in your sales process, how amazing would it be if interspliced in that timeline were that, oh, well, Jesse came back and he visited looks like after I talked to him for an hour, he visited these 4 pages on our website, and I can see that all there. So this is what comes back full circle to the beginning of the conversation about picking your tech stack, picking your mothership. This is why HubSpot's a great mothership, because of these reasons, because you can start to interconnect these things. So, then you can go further with that. When people fill out a form, when they do different things, you can market differently to them. You can start to segment them. You can start to personalize and be more customer centric in the sense of giving a customer what they want, figuring out what they want quicker and giving it to them in terms of, like, they're interested in this, give it to them. Like, this is what we have to offer. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but that's the whole point of marketing, is to get attention and awareness, but also nowadays is to give you attention, get awareness, but then keep your attention by giving you relevant stuff that you're interested in. You
Again,
can't do that without some kind of data, and you need a way to organize all of it. So that's how all these things kind of work together.
Marketing is like, it seems like something that I think one of the reasons people give a lot of credence or have a high expectation of marketing be effective, because it's more like, seems like a guessing game.
Right.
What you just illustrated, or what you just helped us see, this is how you can start to make your transition your marketing from I'm guessing to what that they're interested in to actually seeing what they are interested in. That helps support their decision process. People just want to
Right.
make a good decision. How nice would it be to give them the best information to make the best decision along the way?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't have this technology, if you don't have your sales process or your customer acquisition process pretty established, you can't reveal and start to see really good insights unless you approach it that way.
Right. Well, this gets into one of my favorite principles of asking over blasting.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you're not asking your clients for their opinion, if you're not finding creative ways in your marketing or your website to get some kind of feedback, because you can infer things based on pages and content and what people are downloading. But again, coming full circle to why we love HubSpot, and one of the reasons it's stuck around and had such staying power is because they found ways to ask over blasting, where they've been getting feedback from their customers and their clients and even the agencies that sell their software to other people like yourself. So that is a big component of that. And again, you need a tool to do that. And again, HubSpot has those tools in addition to all the other tools that we were talking about. And as we start talking about more and more tools that HubSpot has, we actually start to weed out a lot of other software options, because there are a lot of software options that don't have some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important to note that, but it's big and scary, and it's hard to know that like all up front and just get that from a Google search. So we try to help people the best that we can to work for them. I mean, look, everybody has their preferences, and there are specific industries that need specific software, but by and large, I think HubSpot's a pretty valuable tool for the vast majority of businesses out there, within that certain range.
Totally. I believe that you have to have four things in place, four fundamentals to have a healthy foundation for your business. Everyone focuses on the physical things. We naturally get it. I need an open sign that says when we're open. I need a parking lot that's clean and obvious where I park. When people come in, it's very obvious. It's just a natural thing we do as business people. Here's the waiting area. Here's where you go to order. There's the menu. You pick up your orders over there. That's clear in the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing is helping our business owners, marketing directors to get the virtual version of that in order. And so that when people come, the same thing's going on in their mind. They're evaluating the legitimacy of your offer, your reputation, whether you are going to be considered as a potential solution. It all comes from the virtual portion of that. That's where they begin. That's where you get into the short list. And then when they start talking to you, that's where they make the decision on the final step. So why not get your act together in the virtual world and kill it, and start with the sales side first as you build it out?
Yeah. I mean, and at this point, it's almost not even an advantage. It's more of keeping up at this point, because there's a lot of people that have already been doing this for 10 years in various iterations. So in some senses, it's really, I don't know where it is on the pendulum swing, but at somewhere in the pendulum, it's been swinging towards, no, you just need to do this like the way that you need to have a business address and the way that you need to have a tax ID number as a business. You just also need to get your virtual stuff worked out, because guaranteed your competitors probably already have at least one of them, if not more of them. If they haven't, like even more so, the impetus needs to be go. Like if they haven't, oh my gosh, like you have an amazing opportunity, but most likely it's not opportunity anymore. It's just keeping up and figuring out how to keep up.
But what's worse than that, Jesse? is that your customers are already convinced
Mm,
and expect you to have this
that's
because
true.
they're interacting with brands that have it together. And when they show up on your website and you don't have it, it's really frustrating and confusing to them. And they bounce and go somewhere else that's easy to interact with, find quickly what they want, and find out what the next steps look like for their
Right. I
sales
mean, it
growth.
goes back to the simple example of like, hey, your tire's busted and you don't know the area. You're going to pick this up in your phone and you're going to look right away. Isn't that what you do? You know, business owner X, like
Mhm.
everyone to a man or a woman does that. And sometimes like you almost need to like remind them, like, you're doing this and you actually make these judgments about businesses yourself,
Mhm.
and you're not applying it to your own business, or not fully applying it, or not fully investing. Like, so it's definitely, important. It's important in the 21st century, especially now that pretty much the country is virtual.
Totally.
Right? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the biggest lever that a business owner could lean on right now and get value out of is to quickly adopt a CRM. HubSpot CRM is great. It's free, but any CRM.
Hmm.
But the other piece, you're going to need someone to help you get organized and look at it correctly and implement it because it is change. You're introducing change into your organization. So, Jesse, if
Hmm.
someone wanted to reach out to you and go, hey, I want you to help us set up HubSpot for our organization, how do they connect with you and what would be the next steps?
Right. So for my website, particularly with business stuff, we use the HubSpot tools. So
Mhm.
I have a chat on my website. I've had multiple random chats with people at multiple points in the day. I before all this quarantine stuff, I remember I was on a beach in Florida and I had a random conversation with someone that turned into a sales call,
Mhm.
and it was just a tech quick thing on my phone. I just made the tool available. There's the meeting app is embedded on my website where anybody can book a meeting with me at any time. The calendar is always there. It's accessible. It's a real simple form and experience. So, that's primarily how random leads come in, and we do our best to, talk about the things that we specialize in on our on my website, like the HubSpot sales stuff, and the HubSpot website stuff, which is kind of where I came from and started. Um, we do this with modules too. We build a lot of HubSpot modules, just things that I've seen over the years that are just kind of silly little value things, like, putting your YouTube video in a pop-up. You'd think that would be something that would, be easy to do. It's not. So we made a module and charge a couple bucks for it. And so we put that on the website too and make it really easy for people to chat with us for support or email for support. There's a web page for every single product. Or you can just book a meeting. I'm not hidden behind a wall. Like, it's definitely out there, and it works great for me. It really does. I've really built a really great little small business, far better than anything I did as an employee. And I can tell you that, it's very easy to do, and it's out there. And whether you do the free version or you pay like $50 a month to get a sales seat with kind of the extra bells and whistles, I mean, it's worth it. It's worth its weight in gold for the time it saves, because I just go about my day and focus on the things I want to focus on. Time is important, how you use your time. And if any business owner out there that's a believer like I am, and I'm sure you are, and like, time is your most valuable asset, the most valuable thing the CRM gives you, or the tools in it and the sales thing, is time back. There's things that you do every day that you don't realize that take 10 minutes here, 15 minutes here, tracking your emails. So you just know, like, when someone's actually read it or clicked on a link. Very simple, very easy to do, saves you a lot of time. So there's just stuff like that's where I always just go. Just come back to value, come back to the simple stuff. And a lot of times that opens up the conversation outside of the, hey, everybody's on the internet conversation.
Where can they find you?
They can find us at beginbound.com, and everything is all there. Anytime anybody wants to reach out, I'm here for it. Happy to talk to people, help people with HubSpot. That was really the thing. We're not an agency. I should probably point that out. There are a lot of HubSpot agencies, great agencies like yourself out there. One of the reasons when I started my business that I didn't do that is because I saw a big hole in the market. that wasn't being filled, that there's a lot of great agencies with great talent, but they're wrapped up in retainers or the full marketing experience, whatever. And there's a real good chunk of growing clients on HubSpot now, agencies and customers, that need specific services for the technology. And I just saw an opportunity to do that. I mean, I was told my idea was dumb. Like I shouldn't do it. Like I should now become an agency and get the commission or whatever. And I just made an early calculation. I said, you know what? The second I do that, I'm now a competitor with people like yourself and other people. I didn't want that. I don't want to deal with it. I'd rather, agencies, there's a lot of great agencies. I'd rather work with you guys. You guys need the help too. Everybody needs the help. And so that's kind of what I built my business around, is kind of servicing this industry, both the clients and the agencies. And that's kind of what we built on.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jesse is an expert. He does great work. He's been associated with ROI now, 3 years?
Yeah. 3 years, probably going on 4 now, I think.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Yeah. Jesse's excellent he can work with your team. He's professional, business minded, and can help you resolve a quick CRM implementation or even a CMS spin up if you need content management system for your website. And you can find Jesse at BeginBound.
Yeah, BeginBound. It's a little play on the inbound word for inbound marketing.
Yeah. .com. Jesse, you're a great guest. I appreciate you being on the ROI Online Podcast.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure, and everybody have a great week.
All right. And that's a wrap.
Boom.